Facilities Committee meeting. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next one is intergovernmental agreement with Glynn County Village Drainage Project number 2. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. Glynn County during the end of 2021 agreed to give us $4 million of their ARPA fund, American Rescue Plan Act funding. And as part of that agreement that we executed with Glynn County, we are required to complete the water and sewer portion of the Village Drainage Improvement Project Phase 2 with the ARPA funds as provided. That Glynn County has bid this out and has awarded a contract to the low bidder, Allen Owens Construction. And the water and sewer portion of the work is $217,324.80. So the way we have done these projects in the past, Glynn County is the contract holder, and then they will bill us for the work upon completion. They may do some progress payments along the way, but typically they've billed out just upon completion. So we have a memorandum of understanding here between JWSC and Glynn County outlining that we will reimburse them for $217,324.80 worth of water and sewer work on their project.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll move the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission Facilities Committee forward to the full commission the memorandum of understanding with Glynn County regarding financing of water and sewer improvements for the Village Drainage Improvement Phase 2 with JWSC ARPA funds with a recommendation, with a recommendation to approve the same.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and second. Any questions?
I have a question. If there's any change orders in there, or would that change our number? Or
If there's change orders to the water and sewer portion, that would change our number. They would obviously, Glynn County would bring that to us for our approval at that time. So they're not going to unilaterally change it on us.
Okay.
So in regards to the amount that was bid and accepted, what did they use as a guidance to come up with this agreement with the contractor?
Want to speak to that? Because you were more involved with the design side of the project. So they actually have footages in there that they were going to use for everything because they know what amount of water and sewer is going to be relocated to install the storm and everything like that, correct?
Correct. So, Commissioner, in the design process, we were involved. We did provide input, and basically within their limits of construction, any water and sewer improvements we were able to do were included in the original design. So the bids were based upon that.
Was that a unit price contract?
Yes, sir.
Was it unit price?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's unit price based on the scope as understood. So what happens if the number of units increases? That's probably going to increase this number.
It will increase that number, yes, sir, if that increases.
Okay.
We'd have to bring an amendment to the MOU
Yes.
to handle that at that time. Probably as a final balancing scenario.
And did we perform the design internally or was that outsourced?
It was outsourced.
Georgia Water Environmental, I believe, did the engineering for the county.
And we don't have to do anything to our water system connecting to that. That's just upgrading our water system, right, is what it is?
It is correct. Mostly replaced 2-inch galvanized, some older water lines in that area.
Okay.
Since they're going to have the road dug up, we figured we'd fix our stuff in the area and allow them to pay for the paving.
Yeah.
Will we have an inspector on site periodically?
Periodically, we'll have our inspector, and Mr. Vo will be there periodically checking in on things. And, of course, Glynn County will have their inspectors there as well. So should be well inspected.
There's a motion second. All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Paving services for Rose Cottage Lane. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. Mr. Klein, would you mind pulling this up on the map for us? Rose Cottage Lane is in the Hamilton Landing subdivision. A few years ago, we replaced the force main from pump station 2030, sorry. It was a very popular project. That's the one that we ended up having to shut down the Sea Island Causeway for. So as that was installed approximately 6 years ago, We have had some trench settlement along the force main route. We paved a smaller section of the roadway 2 years ago, but additional settlement has occurred outside the area we've paved. There's been no additional settlement in the area that has been fixed, but what we're requesting to do here is actually to pave the length of Rose Cottage of 1,300 feet, which includes fully milling and repaving the area that's already been patched, so that it's one cohesive unit when we get done and we don't have patches connecting to patches. So we were able to get 2 quotes finally, and again, as we spoke about last month, paving quotes have been a struggle for us. So they'll be milling and resurfacing with 1.5 inches of asphalt for 1,300 feet. And the low quote was from J. Hires Company at $82,750.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend that the full commission award a contract in the amount of $82,750 to J. Hires Company, Inc. for the paving of Rose Cottage Lane.
I'll second.
Can you show us where that is, Todd?
Yes, sir. So, coming on the island, if you head north on Sea Island Road, Hamilton Landing, within Hamilton Landing subdivision, Rose Cottage. It's in the lower half of that subdivision. And,
Pump station's at the end of Stranger Cemetery Road,
yes,
right back there.
pump station 2030.
And so what road are we talking about repaving?
Right there.
And that's because we had to replace the force main?
We installed a new force main there, 6, 7 years ago. And so if you go out there, it's clear that the issues were caused by the pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me restate that and be sure we understand. It's caused by a lack of compaction at the time that they
Yeah, the
completed
pipe's fine.
construction.
The pipe's in good shape, but the dirt around it has moved.
Okay, so what we had is poor performance on the part of the contractor 6 years ago. And
I think if you had one up earlier, it was a pretty good little snapshot of what had occurred.
Yeah, just trying to.
Is there any striping required on this repave?
Road's not currently striped.
I didn't think it was, but I just wanted to check. I have another question. It says here, does not include testing, permits, fees, and unsuitable soils. So those are costs that we have to bear in addition to this?
Those are costs we'd have to bear. We do compaction testing in-house. Our inspectors do that already, so we provide those services for our projects.
Mhm.
And then unsuitable soils, we do have a certain stockpile of available materials if we need to provide that as well.
Any permitting fees from the county on that?
It's just a right-of-way permit. It shouldn't, I believe those are, is there any charge for right-of-way permits?
Not for us, not for as a
Okay.
public utility.
And the last question is, how does the notification for the people that are affected by the construction? Do we notify them, or does the contractor?
We will notify them that the contract has been awarded. The HOA out there has been very concerned about this issue being corrected, so I'm sure when we give them the go-ahead, they will let everyone know about the situation.
Okay.
I believe they're watching live.
Yes.
Okay, I understand that.
And it has been a struggle to get quotes to pave this,
Right.
so we've unfortunately had to put them off for several months.
So now they see live their government in action.
Right.
That's good, okay.
Is the road got curb and gutter? Or is it inverse?
Looks
It's
like
got roll curb. Yes, sir, it's curb.
it's curb and gutter, but I think it's an inverted crown.
So it drains down the center?
That's,
And is our force main down the center?
Force main's down the north travel lane.
It's not showing up on Street View very well. The
But the sinking
Road
is where the
conditions.
force main is not down in the
You
center
can
of
blame
the road.
Google.
It's not right in the center, no, sir. It's sunk in the travel lane. You can kind of see a little bit there what we're talking about.
so the 1,300 linear feet, is that the entire length of the roadway?
Just about the
From-
entire length of the roadway out to whatever the main road, Hamilton Landing Drive or whatever that it tees off of. And that is the area that our crews have went out and said that there is noticeable settlement.
Where has the county been on this issue? I wonder if they've rendered an opinion about this.
They have been in constant communication with us, that it was our issue to fix.
When we do work like this, how long is the warranty stand for the work?
12 months typically.
From the contractor, 12 months. It has been the policy, or at least the practice, that if it's a water and sewer issue, even if it was installed 15 years ago, the county and the city look to us to correct the paving issues.
Yeah, I think we may want to have some understanding with our two local governments about what's practical in terms of a warranty that the utility provide to them on something like this. Because when you have, over a period of time, I'm sure they've had some heavy equipment in and out of there, perform other maintenance or other construction. And those are things that we cannot control, but the county can in this particular neighborhood. So,
Certainly agree with that point, and it's been a ongoing discussion we've had with the city and the county between both leadership and staff members of exactly how long are we liable for these situations if they're 10 years old. And we get requested honestly to repair paving issues that were from road cuts made by United Water before the creation of joint water and sewer.
I think that deserves some work. And I wouldn't ask a question. I would say this is our warranty period.
It
That's
is-
all I have, Chairman.
It is a tremendous cost to us to fix these old repairs.
How much is a settlement?
Couple inches.
Couple inches,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Couple of inches?
it's enough to, yeah, it's
In
enough
certain
to-
areas, yeah.
It's enough to alligator crack it. It's definitely settled.
Did you say the surface was alligator cracked in a few areas, or is it throughout the entire?
I think
length.
it's pretty much. It's been a while since I've been out there and put my own eyes on it, but I know that it's definitely along the pathway of the forest.
So have we done the field inspection to determine that the entire length has settlement?
Yes. Our, Kurt, our systems pumping superintendent, and multiple of his staff members have went out there independently and all confirmed that it's the entire length.
Okay. And that meets a defined standard we have in place to make the comparison?
Can't say yes to that. We don't have a defined standard for that, but I think we typically take it on a more case-by-case basis, but we likely, for that suggestion, need to create that standard.
I just wonder when we mill it and everything, if we should not do some compaction tests to make sure we're not just
We will, our
something over. It's gonna create
inspectors will actually perform compaction testing out there as part of this.
okay.
And that's what we were talking about earlier. If we have to provide material that they can use, we're able to do that.
So like Chairman Duncan said, we have to warrant our stuff forever? Is that what you're saying?
That has been the current practice of the city and the county, yes, sir. And we have been requested to warrant stuff that we did not exist when it was installed.
Yeah, the bigger concern, I think, is where is that expectation coming from? I can imagine it's coming from various operations folks, and they don't even warrant their own work. So that's why I have a little bit of heartburn with having that kind of discussion that the city and the county, their operations groups, their public works groups, et cetera, would expect an indefinite warranty, and they don't even do it themselves. They won't even follow their own standard or specifications when it comes to road repairs. So I think it's a little onerous to push that expectation on the utility. I would think that we'd want to find out what the standard is from the county for road failure to see if this fits within their written standard. And if it is, then it would appear appropriate that we would move ahead with the project. Being a relatively short time of 6 years. But if it doesn't meet that standard, then I would say it might be a little premature. So for that reason, my thoughts are is defer this until we can make that comparison.
We could certainly, if it was moved forward to the commission tomorrow, we could gather that information before tomorrow's meeting. At least do our very best, and if we don't have that information at tomorrow's meeting, it can be deferred at that point as well.
What's the length of commitment for in time that our low bid has offered their
30 days.
price? Okay. So if we execute in 30 days, then we'll be good with this number.
Yes.
So do we need to make a motion to defer it till tomorrow?
Certainly. Well, you've made it, we've already had a motion for this, haven't we?
Yeah, we had a motion, so we amend the motion.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna take it up again tomorrow, there's no reason to defer it to tomorrow. You're just putting it forward to the full commission. So I think the motion is made is proper.
So to follow on with that questioning, we have a motion simply to move it forward for discussion. That's all we've done. Now we can choose to either pass it or not. It's on the approval agenda for tomorrow in any case.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but that means we're gonna be recommending a full,
Right.
okay.
It says recommending.
Right, so you would be recommending
Right,
the full
so we-
commission approve it, per the motion.
So if, in my view, if we do as I suggested, that we would turn down the motion as made at this
Okay.
point, and then it just rolls to our full commission, presuming that we have a quorum tomorrow to take it up.
Do I have to
Discussion.
withdraw my
So we have to
motion?
withdraw, we have to
Back,
withdraw.
We would just vote to deny the motion. It would
Right.
still be on the agenda tomorrow, but it wouldn't come with the recommendation
Okay,
of the facilities
all right.
committee.
Okay, that's fine.
So somebody needs to vote to deny it, I guess. So,
Well, that's,
motion
you
was-
We
can
haven't
call
yet-
the
we
vote.
can call the vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's vote on to deny it then. All in favor?
Oh, to deny? Is that
Yeah.
what you're, okay, okay. Is that a double negative?
So
Made
we'll
sense
talk-
to me.
We'll talk
Okay.
about it tomorrow.
All right.
Next item is dedications of easements and infrastructure. Mr. Klein.
All right, Commissioners, good afternoon. Fair Place report. Okay, this item is a easement dedication, infrastructure dedication combined as a result of private development for a residential development called Perry Place. And location of this guy here. It's off of Martin Luther King Boulevard and Stonewall. And I will zoom into a spot to show you why we're obtaining an easement. It's the site of the former, I think it was a bus yard there at one time, that some of the folks have been around for a while may remember.
It canceled, you gotta refresh.
Yeah, it did.
You made it mad. You know you don't click it more than once.
Moving way too fast. All right. Let's see. Well, now.
You got to go south.
I had my spot saved in here, then I took them off. Start over.
It's the yellow.
There we go.
There it is.
Bear with me here. Okay. Kind of looks like in the old ortho image, at least it still looks like the bus yard was cleared. The ghost images are the new residential buildings that are in there. And the yellow lines are what's considered proposed, but if this passes and everything is accepted, those will turn into private or red infrastructure, still considered in construction phase. The one portion I want to draw your attention to here, there's a pre-existing water line that runs through right through the center of the project, and it was probably when N Street maybe actually went straight through there. But here's an existing water line. That's what they actually tied into to serve their project. So as they develop this, we're obtaining an easement that's going to allow us future access to own or to maintain that line. And then there's also one little piece of sewer line that's associated with this as well. The record drawings that are part of the exhibit attachments show that little guy also. Very last sheet, at least on mine, it's the very last sheet.
It is, yep.
Yeah, you can see a little 50 or so foot piece of sewer line in there. So that's the sum total. The water line is not part of the dedication. Joint Water and Sewer Commission already owned that water line. It's part of the city's infrastructure.
So the water line, we already have an easement for that.
This is to obtain an easement over the pre-existing water line that we already owned. So,
And then the sewer line is not in, but they're putting that in on this project.
yes, sir, they have already put that in and installed it, and the sewer line is down on this corner.
Yeah, it's on the last sheet too.
Yes, sir. Very last sheet of the,
The green.
that's it right here.
Now, we're talking about only accepting the sewer line and the existing water line?
The sewer line and then an easement over the existing water line. We already own the existing water line.
Correct.
Right, but we're not accepting any of the water and sewer within the private development.
Everything, these are master metered. This is a master metered project, and so all the water lines internal are gonna remain privately owned and operated. And the only piece of sewer that they are dedicating to us is in the public right of way, is this piece here, to connect to our infrastructure.
And where's the master meter gonna be? On that water
Let's
line?
see,
That water line that crosses the
'Cause
property that
I
we
see
did
we
the
got,
easement.
it looks like we got several connections to that water line. I see a master meter, but I see several connections.
let's see. Yeah, I may have to grab my glasses, huh?
Can you pull up the drawing we're looking at?
Yeah, let me do that.
That would be more,
Let's see.
so we don't presently have an easement over the water line.
That's correct.
Are
This
these-
was the
are
bus
these-
yard before? Is that what it was?
Yeah, for the school system.
Right, okay, right. So we didn't really need the easement there particularly. They just moved the buses out of the way.
Well, as Todd suggested, N Street probably went straight through at
Right.
one time
Right.
until the property was closed, and then
Right.
there's just an oversight to pass an easement along.
Oh, okay, okay. It looks better than it did.
Yeah,
Is the construction completed on this project?
it is. It's actually, I think it's fully occupied at the moment too.
Are those rentals or homeowners?
That I don't know. I don't know exactly.
Looks like there's one 4-inch meter coming off right there by the easement, and then there's a 2-inch irrigation meter over there with an
2-inch
RPC on it.
irrigation.
intent to remain private from the beginning, from the developer's perspective, correct?
It was, yes.
They own the fire hydrants and everything, and so far as the fire department, is it gated? It's gated, isn't it?
No, sir.
It's not gated?
I know the outside, the perimeter is gated. I don't know if it's gated to get in. I don't know if they, yeah, thank you, fence,
There's a
yeah.
fence.
Oh, I think it's gated.
Yeah,
I know
perimeter
there's a fence
fence,
along the street.
yeah.
Okay. So we just have one master meter?
One master meter, yes, sir. Well, and an irrigation meter.
So we have two connections? Okay.
And a fire line, so technically a third connection, but fire lines are handled separately. They pay a flat rate for that.
So the fire, we got a third meter for fire line?
There's no meter on the fire line.
Where is the fire? So we have three connections to the water line?
Yeah, it looks
That's what I
like,
can't see.
There's it's a, we call it dual detector check. It's a, if there's a low flow, it's picked up.
Yeah.
It's basically got a small meter off to the side of
Okay.
it, like a bypass. So if somebody ties in an
Got a
irrigation
detector
system.
check on the water line, fire line.
On the fire line, correct, yes, sir.
And we've got an irrigation line that has an irrigation meter,
Irrigation meter.
and we've got a master meter on the water, so we'll be sending them two bills, irrigation and.
I believe so. Yes.
Two bills, same envelope.
Same envelope, that's good.
Possibly a third if there ever shows up a low flow on the detector.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll move the Facilities Committee forward this project with associated dedication, application, and easement to the full commission for approval and acceptance.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item is property acquisition, exit 42 elevated storage tank. Mr. Burrows?
Yes, sir. Out at exit 42, there are two large development tracts. The well-known one is Trade Winds, but also the Economic Development Authority in Glynn County owns the Gateway tract. What we are requesting here is a agreement with the EDA for us to purchase a 150 feet by 150 feet approximate parcel in order for us to construct an elevated storage tank adjacent to the existing water main that crosses the Gateway property. As part of this agreement, there will be no exchange of funds. The agreement the Development Authority has agreed to is they will be able to paint their logo on the tank, or at least some logo they want on the tank at the time it constructed. So they were okay with the ability to have their logo up there in exchange for the parcel. And the goal here would be to build a 750,000 gallon elevated storage tank. That project is funded through the bond issuance. And this will be adjacent to the interstate right-of-way, right there coming into town past the bridge at exit 42, or the overpass at exit 42.
We don't have any other elevated storage tanks in the area? Or-
Yeah, closest elevated storage tank in the area is the one at the end of Kate Road. It's only a 300,000 gallon tank.
Right.
And given that area's impending development and also chance for industrial development at that area, we
Right.
feel it's important to put a larger tank up there for, better control of pressure and fire flows.
I'll move the Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission Facilities Committee forward to the full commission the intergovernmental purchase agreement with the Brunswick and Glynn County Development Authority for the purchase of the property to locate a future water storage tank with a recommendation to approve the same.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second. Are there any questions? I've got a couple. Andrew, on this second boundary plat, it shows existing 100 square foot signage easement. What kind of sign is there now?
There's a billboard. There's multiple billboards along the way there. I don't remember which one that is.
And where our site is, if we looked at, how does the highway, the interstate, fit as it relates to the elevation of this property?
Not sure I understand your question.
Is the roadway higher than the elevation of this property, or is it about the same elevation, or what?
About the same, right there. I mean, when you're coming south on 95, you'll probably not be able to see the tank from a huge distance away because there's an overpass in the way. You might be able to see something in the background, But as soon as you come under that overpass, that tank should be the most prominent thing in your vision at that point.
I think so.
And
And the 30-foot utility easement, is that an existing easement? Is there a sewer line in that
there's a
easement?
water and sewer line in that easement.
So is that where our water line's gonna be placed in that easement also?
There's an existing water line there, yes, sir, and then, when something is built out, we could, the developer at that point, or industrial customer, whoever ends up locating on that property, could be extended down the interstate, parallel to the interstate to their property. So that easement is exactly where everything crosses to go underneath the interstate for water and sewer up in that district.
And our access to the tank site would be coming through the existing.
Through the
20-foot
existing easement, yes, sir.
egress. Have we done any soil borings on this site yet?
We have not. We've got boundary survey and then getting a topo survey completed, and then we'll move into engineering at that point.
In-house engine.
In-house engineering, hopefully, on this one. So you can kind of see it there. We'll be on just to the south side of the water line, because to the north side of the water line is where that billboard easement was at.
So you can see it from the interstate, yeah.
What size is the water line and sewer line going through there?
12-inch water line and a 24-inch sewer line, I believe.
So this tank's gonna serve both sides of the interstate?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, both sides of the interstate.
And
It'll help
it'll
exit
serve
42.
Buc-ee's, it'll serve Buc-ee's.
It'll serve all of exit 42, help with pressures at exit 38. All Harry triggers, everything in that area should benefit from this tank.
The Canal Road well, we take off the Miocene wells up there, so we'll have,
Once Canal Road well is built,
Good shot.
obviously, we'll have to orchestrate which wells pump to which tank, and that'll help balance our system out better on the well usage as well.
well, I would suggest we get soil borings as soon as possible on it.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the property acquisition, Highway 17 North Pump Station Site, Mr. Burrows.
Yes, sir. There's an existing mobile home park out on Highway 17 called Golden Shores. Currently, there is need for us to install a larger pump station to serve more property in that area. Currently, the only thing that is served by a private pump station is the Golden Shores subdivision. There's another subdivision just to the south, and the ability to potentially long-term serve customers on the east side of Highway 17. So we've been working with the property owner to acquire our standard 50-foot by 50-foot parcel to install a new pump station at the location, and to get them off of their existing pump station. If you recall, we installed a new force main at this area last year and a half ago, to get the force main out of the GDOT right-of-way for the 17 widening project.
Right.
I will note that the existing infrastructure on site is not up to code, but with the existing addition of a new station on the exchange parcel, the system will be deemed acceptable to the Joint Water and Sewer Commission. So the property owner has agreed to give us the property in exchange for us taking over his system as a result.
Can I have a motion?
I'll
Yes.
make a motion that the Facilities Committee of the Joint, of the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission forward to the full commission with recommendation for approval of the purchase of the pump station parcel in exchange for taking over possession and maintenance of the water and sewer infrastructure of Golden Shores.
Second.
Motion second. Are there any questions?
Yeah, what kind of time frame are we talking about putting a pump station in there?
Design plans are ready, we just gotta send them to, once the parcel is straightened out, we're sending them to EPD for review, and then we're putting them out for bid.
And we don't take over their existing structure until we have ours in place and running?
We will take over their existing structure when the parcel is dedicated to us.
When it's dedicated, okay,
Yeah. When the paperwork's signed,
okay. So if anything goes wrong between the two times, but we already know what's there, so,
We are very aware of the
Okay.
condition of that current station.
okay.
And so to follow on with the timing of the operation of the new pump station, we're talking about at least by the end of first quarter next year.
Yes, well, potentially, you're talking about for the new pump station, it's
Yeah.
possible if we put it out. EPD reviews taking usually 4 weeks or so to get anything back from them right now, maybe a little longer on some projects, so put it out for bid first quarter next year.
Okay,
And then probably looking summer
second quarter.
before that's constructed, just depending on how long it takes to get the wet well and any electrical components.
Haven't we already ordered the pumps?
The pumps are here. The pumps are sitting at the systems pumping and maintenance building right now, so we got pumps on hand.
Great.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. We'll move to the discussion section, water production report. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. On the Brunswick District, your first sheet you have there, you can see that we have been doing work at Howard Coffin and Goodyear Park on the SCADA and electrical services there. Been doing that work internal with the assistance of a couple of additional hands from Certified Electric. So you see their usage has been fluctuating a lot the last several months, but both of those stations are back up and running now. So when it comes to November, those should stabilize. As a result, Brunswick Villa ran extensively more than it usually does to pick up the slack from those two stations being offline for a portion of the month. Everything else mostly stayed pretty consistent for the month. Overall, the flow in the Brunswick District, very consistent from where it's been the last 3 to 4 months. Potentially due to, of course, the growing season being lower, we're not seeing the irrigation usage on the mainland that we were earlier in the year.
The Canal Road well, is that the one we're putting in the new facility in?
Yes, sir.
What would that well use for, this water right here?
It is, we don't actually run it for any reason to produce water, but we're required by EP.
What were they?
Best I recall, we had some, with Howard Coffin being shut off, we had some lower pressure issues that maybe once we increased the pumping rate and tried to flush in the areas to get the pressure back up, we jarred some stuff loose in the lines and had a little discolored water coming into the lines there. Mostly standard type complaints, nothing of particular significance there. St. Simon's, the airport well was down for maintenance for a little bit of the month there, so the Mallory well on the south end kicked up a lot. Also, as we know, in October is a very busy weekend at the end of the month, particularly on the south end of St. Simon's. So the well site shows the increase in flow there significantly from where it had been the past couple of months. All in all, the flow for the month a little higher than it was in September, but still lower than it had been previously when there was heavy irrigation on the island. I will say it says there were 5 taste and odor complaints on the island. 3 of them were from the same customer. And we ended up finding out it was their water softener. And the other 2, I believe, were from rentals that may have been vacant for a few weeks prior to someone showing up for Georgia, Florida weekend. And then down on the South Mainland, had a pump go out at Fancy Bluff, so the Brookman well was able to maintain consistent flow for the month for them, so you see a little bit. Typically, those are a lot more leveled out, but the Brookman well ran extensively for the month, but monthly flows very consistent with where they had been previously. So, all in all, pretty standard month for us at this time of year.
Were the pressures in this area maintained pretty well, even with the pumping out?
Yes, sir. Technically, the Brookman well does the vast majority of maintaining the pressure anyway at the exit 29 area because the elevated storage tank is at the same piece of property that the well is.
Okay.
So the Fancy Bluff well kicks on, and when we try to operate it off of the tank level, it kicks on, and then before it can push water to the tank, the Brookman well has already filled it back up. So the Fancy Bluff well helps in those occurrences, but the pressure is typically maintained almost exclusively by the Brookman well.
So the elevated storage tank is your booster.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
All right.
So,
Got it. Everything looks pretty consistent. Okay.
You can go to wastewater.
yes, sir. Wastewater report, much drier month for the month of October than September, and the flows reflected that. Also, the influent concentrations reflected a similar reduction or increase in concentration and reduction in flow coming in there. Plant handled it very well. We have 97% removal of BOD and 96.5% removal of TSS at Academy Creek. We'll note that the filters have been offline since early September, so these numbers are very good considering that the filters have not been operating on the back end to remove additional solids. Very low rainfall for the month. Most of it occurred in one day for the month, and pretty consistent output from the plant for the last couple of months. Do have an update when we get to the capital report about the filters, so those should be back online in the very near future. So as you can see there at the graph there, you have the one fairly significant blip on the flow there, and everything else has been pretty consistent for the year at Academy Creek.
Oh, let me ask, so from an engineering standpoint, when you have to plan for those extreme days when you're doing, deciding how the plant operates?
Yes, sir. Typically, and Mr. Turnipseed, you more than welcome to correct any information I give here. Typically, you're designing a plant at a 2-time normal daily flow for a max flow condition hydraulically.
2 or 2.5 times the maximum.
2 to
flow.
2.5.
So hydraulically, it'll handle it.
Okay.
The problem, if you got too many solids in there, you could have a washout of solids a little bit or something like that.
Right, yeah.
So that we've had that happen in the past. We've had too many solids held in the system. All of a sudden, we get this major rain event and it blows solids out, and our effluent for the day gets a little high for solids. So if we know there's a major rain event coming, we try to start wasting away solids a little bit, get those out of the system so we don't hold the inventory necessary. And the way we operate our plant, we keep as much stuff online as possible to give us maximum detention time to remove ammonia. So we don't have to necessarily concern ourselves with opening new basins up for a rain event. At Dunbar Creek right now, we're only operating with one tank aeration basin in service. So if we continue to do that when the other one's able to be turned back on in a major rain event, we'd want to go ahead and open that basin up in advance and let the solids build up in there for a few days
Right.
before the rain event.
Right.
At Academy Creek right now, we have 2 of our aeration basins that have an awful lot of grit in them. And we're trying to explore a way to get that grit out that will help on this also. And then one clarifier's down right now. You'll see, I think the picture will show one clarifier's down.
Picture,
We're waiting
yes.
to put it back online, so all of those will help when we get that.
Right,
We're gonna
yeah.
make some other clarifier improvements too.
Right, yeah.
We'll say interesting, and this will show up on the, well, not on the, we got 2 more weeks in the month, but this will show up on the November report. We saw the high flows at Academy and Dunbar for the month of September with the rainfall. We had the storm come through, had a major tidal situation occurring, and we saw a slight elevation, but we didn't see near the elevation in flows from the tidal influence is what I was expecting to see during the storm. Flow at Academy on a typical day is about 6.5, 7 million gallons. In the major rain event we had in September, we were hitting 22, 23 million gallons.
Right.
The tidal influence we had from the storm that came by, we never got over 12. So it's appeared to be more rainfall driven than tidal driven, which is good and bad. If it's tidal driven, that limits what you have to look for, but at least the tides don't seem to be influencing as much as maybe we expected.
Yeah, the storm surge got to about elevation 6 on
Right.
the west side of the island.
Right, so we know, we know the low-lying areas were covered in water for at least a period of time. Didn't see a huge spike. It was sort of a gradual increase. It wasn't a huge spike at one point. So.
Yeah, it was just a couple of hours.
So that's kind of indicative of needing to pay attention to I&I.
Right,
Okay,
absolutely. So
Okay.
rainfall driven, definitely.
yeah.
At Dunbar Creek, again, lot less rain for the month, so you see the flows came back down to where they had been previously. The plant at Dunbar Creek, it operates very effectively. Month to month, you get very consistent results. Plant's being operated very well, 98% removal of BOD and TSS, and all in all, just very effectively treating the wastewater leaving the island there. And then at Southport, very similar story there. The Southport system being newer doesn't have the I&I problem, so the decrease in flow not near as substantial as what you saw at the other facilities. But all in all, that plant being operated effectively. We'll note, as I've said before, that is a low-strength wastewater coming in there due to the amount of water we get from the port coming off the washing of vehicles and things of that nature that don't have standard domestic waste in them. So you will see the BOD stay and TSS coming in stay low there, even though we haven't had rain events.
Can we pull up on the system, my water system map, and show where the port is and where our water system goes and where it ends?
Sure. Could you show the south end?
Certainly.
There's a lot of conversation with the Cimarise fire about the water system
Oh, south end.
at exit 29.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So there, you see the port there. You can turn the
Yeah.
aerials on.
We can extend it to them if they want.
We've brought that up. We have actually mentioned that. They have a
Be a
nice
great
water
customer.
nice water tower down there that they own.
Yeah.
There's a port. The Cimarise facility is back in the back there, and our water system stops at Royal Oaks, right?
Fancy Bluff Creek.
You guys zoom in.
It's been into Made him mad again. This is our Fancy Bluff well here.
So where the well site right there at Royal Oaks across the street, that's where the water system ends.
And they produce their own water.
They do.
They have their own wells, they have their own elevated storage facility and everything on site. We take their sewer. We've asked if they'd like to be water customers, and so far we have not been successful.
And the sewer is pumped back to Southport?
Sewer's pumped to Southport, that's correct. Green dash line is the pump station leaving there. They have a sewer flow meter on that pump station that's billed to the Ports Authority.
Is that their pump station?
No, we own it, maintain it.
What might make them change their mind, besides an exposure on national TV?
Failing wells would probably be the only thing that's gonna change
Okay.
their mind.
Yeah.
All right.
And Cimarise is a separate entity.
It is, from the
They're
Ports
at the
Authority.
very southern
Yeah.
end of what Georgia Ports Authority has on. So
Mhm.
they're a self-contained unit.
They have their own, do their own
Their
water?
own system, totally isolated. The only thing they take commercial is power.
So they have their own water system too?
Yeah.
So, we'll say, a lot of chatter, obviously, when major things like that happen in town.
I don't know if they take natural gas, but anyway, they don't take any water or sewer.
So, just kind of shows you the limits of some of our systems down there, and other reasons we're trying to expand the system.
Now, that plant was built, shucks, I think it was in the 70s.
That Fancy Bluff well was probably, when was that put in?
2004,
well,
somewhere around there.
Yeah, is that the water system down there? We actually have an issue not an issue, it's just a paperwork thing with EPD. You have to do annual once every 3 years, you have to do lead and copper sampling. You're required to have a certain number of properties that you lead and copper sample, but the house has to be built before 1988 and connected to the system. We don't have enough houses built before 1988 at exit 29 that are connected to our system to actually get all the samples we're supposed to get. I think there's only 3 built before 88 that are connected to the system. We're supposed to have 10. So we have to tell them every year that we'll give you the 3 we got, but we can't give you 10 samples.
Give you 100% of them.
Yes,
So we certainly would be willing to provide water to them.
absolutely,
If requested.
absolutely.
Okay, capital project report, Mr. Burris.
All right, capital project report, our first project, which is good because it's starting with a higher number, which means they're newer projects. Academy Creek facility there. You can see, as Mr. Fermpsey was talking about earlier, that is the empty clarifier. We've got to replace the gearbox on that clarifier. We approved that this summer. That is supposed to be delivered the first or second week of December. So hopefully that clarifier will be back online before the end of the year. In the back right of that photo, you'll see the filter structure. We've had some ongoing issues with the filters, and we were finally able to determine what the cause of those issues were. There was a slight piping error that was not allowing it to evacuate solids as efficiently as it should have, so they were building up in the tank. It increased the vacuum that it was having to pull to try to remove the solids and ended up causing some damage. The supplier and contractor are covering all of the issues, taking care of it. One of the sides is ready and back up to run, and the other one is being worked on as we speak. So hopefully those will be back up and running before the end of the month, and we can have those filters operating the way they were intended to be. One of those things that the supplier came down and told me he had bad news, and he told me what it was, and my response was, well, at least we have an answer. Answers are good news. So we moved through that pretty effectively.
So we're on the closed or the idled clarifier there. What are we looking at to remove the grip from that part?
We'll just fill it back up, and then once it's filled back up and operating again, it pushes all that towards the center and is removed.
Okay.
The bottom photo there, that's a shot of the headworks area, a new splitter box we have. You see the odor control tower. Odor control startup was officially today. So our operators were trained this morning on the new odor control equipment. It has been very effective. It has been running, and all the panels have been installed for approximately 2 or 3 weeks now. That does not mean you're never going to drive by there and catch an odor periodically, but it has been drastically reduced in my trips through there for the past 3 weeks. That smaller structure beside the large tower, if you can show that carbon filter right there, that will be filled with activated carbon to remove anything that is passing through the biofilter as well. So that one's moving along well. Still got some punch list items we're trying to knock out. The overwhelming majority of the punch list items are related to electronics issues that occurred. It seems like we're having a lot of issues with sensors and HMIs and things like that came standard with the equipment, and we're having to replace, but the lead times on some of those items has been pretty lengthy.
I have a question here. It says staff will be monitoring the effectiveness of the new odor control improvements. Is that a formalized process?
It's a formalized process where I walked around and talked to people that I know come down 341 every morning and go home
Okay.
on the way to work and ask them to, hey, particularly those that are not as desensitized to it as some of us that have spent considerable time at a wastewater plant. In fact, Miss Janice, she gives me the daily report of whether she smelled anything. So.
Well, at least we have an A-team member
Yes,
here
absolutely.
doing it for us. That's great.
Just a thought, perhaps this is in the program, is to do some monitoring at the same locations that we did, I think it was 2 or 3 years
Sure.
ago. So we have additional data. We have a baseline, and now we have new data since we've operationalized the odor control system. And I think that would be beneficial to share.
So you can also see there's piping that runs to the new splitter box across that sort of catwalk there.
Yep.
That's been operating for several months now, and you can stand on top of that splitter box, which is essentially not just essentially, it's just stuff being pumped from the hole in the ground up to the splitter box, and that's where Pinova comes in. You can stand on top of that box, and there's a faint smell right there at the corners where there's a gap.
Yeah.
But it's not,
Mhm.
there's nothing there that's really a problem since that has been installed, so. And then hopefully we get all these things wrapped up, and we still want to do for lack of a better term, a grand reopening event once we finish the project.
Yeah, and to follow on my comment was, a few years ago, the city had funded an odor control monitoring as a part of their SPLOST.
Right.
And I think it'd be beneficial to provide them some additional feedback now that their investment moved toward this result.
Certainly. We used to keep it at close to water level, and we had a monitor at the top. The one close to water level probably is going to show that it's stronger because it's under the panels and everything is concentrated.
Sure.
But the one at the top should be drastically reduced from where it was at.
These two photographs also show the new paving that we just had done.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it looks nice.
I have not gotten any more nails in my tires since we paved that.
Oh, that's,
Did have to buy new tires finally, but picked up a few flats from driving around there for the last year and a half.
So we're down pretty much to punch item list.
It's
on
all
that.
punch list items. The
Okay.
odor control, there's only one more thing that's gotta be started up, which is the sludge offloading facility, which we are working with the engineer to correct some issues with, so we can start that up. And then everything else is just punch list items.
All right.
All right, Pump Station 2002 Force Main, that's the Arnold Road project. We started out with some, little bit snake bit the first day. We got out there after testing equipment the previous Thursday and Friday. The first day when we got out there, the equipment didn't function. So, we got essentially nothing accomplished from a new pipe perspective the first day. The second day, we finally started putting, buckets in the ground and found a water main that we didn't know existed. So the first couple of days were pretty much a wash, from productivity standpoint. We did not hit a gas main, but we found a gas main that was leaking, appeared to be leaking, so we had to call Atlanta Gas. They came in. Of course, you have to evacuate the area while they do their work. So the first 2 weeks, despite hoping that it would be completed in 2 weeks, we were able to get 300 of the 1,000 feet installed. But the first 2 days of this week, we've got an additional 200 feet installed, so we're back to making progress effectively there. The hope is certainly, we were planning to be paving this week, but the hope is certainly to be completed before Thanksgiving and paved soon thereafter. So crews have been working hard, just one of those projects that couldn't get out of the gates very well.
How does the delay fit with our paving contractor?
We've made them aware. They seem to be able to accommodate so far.
Good.
So the goal is to pave beginning the Monday after Thanksgiving, the 28th, I believe that is.
Okay.
Okay, next project is 2016 Arco Area Water and Sewer Extensions. That project is moving along still. If you get a chance to drive through the neighborhood there, you'll see a lot of activity. Most of the water main is essentially complete out there, and they are currently working on the sewer installation down 9th. And probably next meeting will bring to you an idea that was come about between the engineer of record and the contractor on a reroute of the planned, what was previously planned sewer. So I look forward to bringing that before you for consideration. A lot of activity going on down there. Next project is galvanized replacements. Always get some good pictures from that project. In-house forces pulling out the old and replacing it with new.
We'll say we are somewhat at a standstill on the galvanized project because we're waiting on tubing to show up to actually start replacing some of the galvanized. And then we've installed some new poly lines in St. Clair subdivision and some up there, Reynoso, Menendez area. But we're having to wait for corp stops to show up. We have a handful of corp stops that we're keeping on hand for building as it continues, so we don't hold up any of the builders, and waiting on a shipment of corp stops so we can start installing the new services there. So,
Before we leave that, Andrew and Todd were at a conference that just finished today, and they brought up to date about lead and copper and service lines. And I think within 3 years, we're supposed to finish a survey of where our lead service lines are in people's houses. And we do, in the newer subdivisions, not a problem, but in the older subdivisions, which we have a lot of them. And so, Andrew, you want to address that and just tell us what
so
we
what
might
we're
be
doing, using the Glynn County tax records, they have information on when homes were constructed. We're going to filter out anything that was built after 1988 because it shouldn't have a lead service line if it was built after 1988. Anything before then, we're going to have to confirm. And we're actually demoing a piece of equipment in a couple of weeks that will be able to tell us, suggest where there might be lead service lines. It sends some type of current into the line, not electric. I don't know exactly what it is. Some type of current into the line, with the resistivity and tells us, you know, the different types of materials, so we can do it that way. Instead of having to dig up all these services, you just take it loose at the meter, run the equipment, and then you're good to go, and then it tells you. And we have to generate a public-facing map of here's where we have lead services, here's where we don't have lead services, and if it's unknown, my understanding is it counts as a lead service. And then once you've identified those, then we have to, by 2028, I believe, we have to have a plan in place to replace all of those.
And there should be grant money to replace in disadvantaged areas.
Yes, so.
Now, what about the private systems in Glynn County?
Private systems would be required to do that themselves. We haven't reached out to any of them.
I suggest there's opportunity there.
Yes. That just crossed my mind. So that may be something we need to look at.
Now, the service, are you speaking of the line from the meter to the house itself, or?
Both. We're required to go from the main to the house.
Okay, at some point of connection at the house, at the structure. And then what about beyond, inside the structure?
We're not bringing it up so they don't talk about it.
Inside
The question's been asked internally, and we're kind of hoping the EPD and EPA don't decide that we have to do things inside people's houses.
So we'll be
That's the
responsible
importance
all
of
the way.
definitions.
Yes, definition's very important.
So we'd be responsible all the way to the, where
All
it
the
gets
way to the
house.
structure, according to the
Right.
standard.
So we'll keep our attorney busy there with some waiver of liabilities and things like that. More than likely.
You'd have to get a temporary construction easement to replace the line.
Right, yeah. Wow.
I think one approach might be, even though it's a regulatory agency that's driving this, that, and even though that we may receive grant funding to replace from the street to the structure, I suggest that we don't want to own that,
Absolutely.
that we put some sort of legal instrument into place so that, okay, we're replacing this on the behalf, because of a regulatory requirement, but it's not something we want to own and maintain indefinitely.
So I actually sat in on a pretty good presentation today that somebody was given on how they were going through their GIS system and tying that to their work order system and getting that inventory together. So I was going to reach out to, from Columbia County, reach out to one of their staff members, see if I could get a copy of that presentation, because I thought it would be very helpful for us.
Yeah.
To look at that. They're using, of course, distribution meter readers, things like that. Anybody's going to go in that meter box while you're there. Hey, identify what the materials are.
And I think with our meter replacement, we should be doing that as we
We
replace
have
the meter.
requested our meter replacers do that, and they told us they were not interested.
But we can go behind them while they're there, perhaps, if we knew what they were doing. It'll save us having to dig up something else.
Yes, we can look at it right there at the box, maybe have to shovel dig around the edges. The reason we're demoing the piece of equipment is there's some concerns that somebody's gonna have replaced with some PVC at the meter box for 10 feet, because that's where the leak was occurring, and then everything past that is lead in some of these old homes.
Right, and that's a realistic possibility, sure.
Okay. Speaking of meter replacements, so we get photos here. Looks like M&E's busy at it still. Mr. Eric Maddox was caught in action. A lot of this is manual. I think he's welding, actually, doing some
Like a
repairs.
plasma cutter.
Yeah,
Cutting a hole
okay, that's
to
what
it.
he's
Plug the hole
doing.
for the
Yeah.
antenna.
Yeah. for the-
So, a lot of hands-on, heavy effort going in there. There's kind of what everybody was just talking about just now, about sometimes there's potential to identify what is in the ground while you got it open, but maybe they can be sweet-talked still, huh?
Have we found any places that were not metered?
Any place, we have found places that had bypasses installed around the meter while we're doing this.
But have we found any place that was not metered?
We haven't sent them to places that we don't know about. We've sent them to the meters we're aware of.
All right. Dunbar Creek?
Dunbar Creek, we're in a bit of a holding pattern, waiting on materials to show up on that facility. I speak with the contractor every week or so, and it's the same story. He's pushing, we're pushing, trying to get things to show up right now. It's been a bit of a challenge. Tank is ready to go. We're waiting before we try to fill that thing back up and put the old diffusers in. We were hoping to get the new diffusers in. We're still being told January on delivery for the new diffusers. We've asked if they're willing to send us half so we can do one tank instead of having to have both of them at one time. And the manufacturer has not been able to accommodate that request at this time. So we are asking for some quotes and additional engineering type quotes to see what it would take to potentially fill in a portion of the pond there on site and bump the roadway out a little bit to allow for future installation of a full 80-foot diameter clarifier right there. So we would have to shift out into the lake a little bit. We expect that's going to be pretty expensive, but we'd like to know what that actual cost would be, so that's something we can consider the cost benefit of.
The top picture shows the tank. There's a steel tank that's been repainted.
Yes, sir.
One comment, Andrew, the outlet structure there on the right-hand side, we need to ask the engineer to design something that covers that with some kind of grate or something. Because when that's full, that water just, if somebody ever falls in that basin, they're gonna get sucked into that line. That won't be very pretty.
Yes, sir.
So if we can ask them to do that
I will.
and have a change order on the contract with that.
Okay, moving along, now in action is our Glen Place Mall to Oglethorpe site as well, elevated storage tanks, rehab project. So we just had the kickoff meeting with the contractor, I believe it was earlier this week, and
We're mentioning those to proceed 1st of December sometime?
yeah, we're looking around the 1st of December for NTP. And that's going to time in right. They got a big job. I think it's in Arkansas going on right now. They're going to bring over the same crew that did our last two rehabs. So did a really nice job. Expecting the same on this project. So that's mall. You can see here on the very top picture, and then also very bottom picture. That's our Oglethorpe tank on St. Simon's Island. You can see two customers in the distance out there.
What size are these
Immediately served.
tanks?
I think both half, I think, yeah.
And what size were the other ones that we just painted before?
Prince Street was 750 and
think it was-
Demery is 500.
It's half also.
I wonder if it's more expensive to paint this kind of tank than the other type of tank.
I don't know if it's more expensive because of market conditions or because of the type of tank, but it's definitely more expensive for this contract than it was the
Well,
last
it
one.
was, but it'd be interesting to ask him if it is more expensive for the,
We'll try to get some
Pedestal
insider
tank like
information
that.
on that, yes, sir. The new tank we're constructing is probably gonna be the composite tank with the concrete
Right.
base all the way up, and you only gotta paint the very top of it.
All right, now here's the spreadsheet, and what I will touch on is a few things. Our projects in motion, I'll call it report, the picture report, things that are under construction. You've seen it kind of dwindle down in sheet count. But right on its heels are some new projects that are gonna be coming out pretty quickly. Touch on a few of those that are wrapping up or closely wrapping up in engineering design. Community road sewer expansion, that's one that's wrapping up pretty quickly. 4105, 107 in-house, we're taking and splitting out the force main, and we're shooting that guy off to EPD in the next couple of weeks so we can bid out the force main itself. Canal Road Water Production Facility, we should be getting 90% drawings on it here next in the next couple of weeks from our engineer record there, Thomas and Hutton. North Mainland Water Loops, wrapping up all the final permitting issues there. That's another one that's gonna be going out for bid. We're hoping if not December, first quarter. And then the pump station rehabs, which is 4002, 4001, and 3101. Friday, actually, we've got our bid meeting with our engineer record on that. Hopefully got a big list of contractors signed up to attend that. That's another one that's going to kick off first of the year or so. And let's see here. in 2056. We're going through in-house formulating the design RFP for that one at Kickout for some help on the force main. It's going to require some surveying and a little bit of design on the force main. And then 2033-34, we're doing that in-house, developing scope of work to put that straight out for construction. Those are upgrades for those two pump stations. And Brunswick Villa area sewer extensions, got our engineer of record engaged in that one and kicked off, ready to go. And 3114, I'll touch on that. That's a reroute down on the south end. We're gonna do that one in-house. We're procuring surveying services right now for that. So there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes coming quickly on the heels where you'll see that picture report start picking up again.
Are any of these projects that was to be funded with the new SPLOST?
Not yet. With the new SPLOST passing last week, the first project we're working on an RFP for engineering on now is to do the exit 29 well and elevated storage tank project. Should be very similar to what we did at Canal Road and Ridgewood. Obviously, the elevated storage tank will be very similar, probably more of a 500,000 gallon tank than a 750,000 gallon tank on the south end with that project. The hope is we have that RFP out and advertised before the end of the year. So that way we're potentially starting engineering around the beginning of the collection of the SPLOST so that we can get momentum on that. And then a couple of the smaller neighborhoods on the extension projects will go ahead and get started as well. But until we know what the final dollar value is going to be on the south end projects, I don't want to get too extended on the neighborhood expansion projects.
How does the SPLOST money come in? Is it done monthly or quarterly?
Monthly, we get a check from the county for the collections for the month. It's a month behind the collections.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So the hope is that we're starting projects as soon as the collection starts so that we're getting these things completed. Of course, one of the recurring issues that people brought up with the previous SPLOST was the project we're behind schedule. We're going to do our level best to make sure we're ahead of schedule on all these projects.
That's a good idea.
On the expansions into the previously unserved areas, I suggest it'd be beneficial that we take a survey, if we will, of those who are interested in taking service and look at going into the areas that have the greatest interest percentage-wise for the number of customers in that area.
Yes, sir. We can certainly do that.
Okay. That concludes the report. EVA is also attached.
That it?
And facilities improvement project, I don't think they started this week because I think the weather messed them up. They were supposed to start painting the building this week. I don't believe they've actually started though.
I wouldn't think so.
So if they don't start this week, obviously I don't expect them to start next week. So it'll probably be the 28th before they start the painting project.
Anything else?
That's all I have, sir.